I'm Shihab Ratansi in Washington. Here are the main stories brought to you by Al Jazeera. US President Barack Obama says a financial reform bill he's hoping to sign into law next week will rein in bad banking practices and help prevent another economic meltdown. But some economists say the measure is a watered-down proposal that would not prevent a financial crisis like that of 2008 that the global economy is still recovering from. The leaders of the 8 strongest economies are meeting in the North Muskoka region ahead of the weekend summit of the G20 in Toronto. But as Imtiaz Tayyab explains, differing approaches to the economic crisis are already emerging.
The United States are looking at Britain's latest budget, a budget that is going to see some of the harshest cuts that Britain has seen in decades. They're looking at Germany with Angela Merkel, who doesn't have the same kind of deficit problems that Britain does, also saying that she's going to be making cuts to deal with her country's deficit. And there's President Obama, who says he thinks that more spending needs to be done, that the world's economy is simply too fragile and that more spending needs to happen. So there is a real division between the U.S. and the Europeans. So one could imagine that there's going to be an awful lot of arm twisting going on, at least from the parts of the Americans trying to get the Europeans on their side, and so that they can show a sign of unity when it comes to global finance.
Alleged Jamaican drug lord Christopher Dudas Koch has pleaded not guilty to drug and gun charges. He entered his plea in federal court in New York on Friday. Prosecutors say Koch ran an operation selling drugs in the New York area and shipped firearms from the U.S. to Jamaica. Monica Villamizar has more on the case.
He could face life in prison and a minimum sentence of 10 years. So the trial that will start in the next days or possibly months could be a very long one. The prosecution has said they spent 2 months gathering evidence against him, and they seem to think that they have a very solid case. In the meantime, Jamaicans and people all over the world are keeping an eye on this case because this man was so powerful back home that he had the potential to destabilize the country politically, and he still has, depending on what he will say. I'm Monica Villamizar, Al Jazeera in New York.
Brazilian authorities are struggling to bring relief to tens of thousands forced from their homes by flooding. Officials say 51 have died. Dozens are still missing after the severe flash floods in the country's northeast. And those are our top stories. You can always keep up to date with the news on our website, the address aljazeera.net/English.